am an unconventional person. Everything about me is unconventional. My childhood, my adolescence, my adulthood, everything. Just to give you guys some basic facts. When I was a little girl, I lived in a motel. That's where I grew up. My parents were struggling first-generation immigrants to the United States. That's my mom sitting there in the audience. And one of the many odd jobs they took was managing motels. Now, a motel, just for the record, is not a hotel. This was not the Four Seasons Maui we're talking about. This was deep in the ghetto in downtown Anaheim, California, and it was a really rough neighborhood. And I remember growing up with drug dealers everywhere, all around me. The first live drug overdose, or OD, that I ever saw was when I was 8 years old. And my students always ask me why I never did drugs. That's the reason. I also remember being scared at night to go to sleep because I remember thinking maybe tonight was going to be the night that my family would get attacked. So it was a very difficult childhood. At the same time, I can tell you that it was the most fun I'd ever had. It was fun as a kid because I was never bored. I always had something to do because I was always helping my parents with this motel. It was my job. My parents couldn't speak English very well, so I had to check people in. And I remember thinking, here I am, 8 years old, and I get to be in charge of reception? This was awesome! I'll never have a better time. I like to think that I was a very good receptionist. I tell this to my own receptionist these days. I was a great phone operator. When people wanted an outside line, I gave them an outside line. I loved to answer phones, trying on different accents. And back in those days, there wasn't really cable. So if people wanted to watch a movie, they had to rent one from me, from an 8-year-old in reception. So I would recommend movies to people, all sorts of movies, some of which were adult movies. But I didn't know that at the time. And for the longest time, I really honestly thought that there was a great movie out there called Naughty Nighttime Nurses. Here's a picture of me when I was in this motel, and you can see clearly I was having fun. Was I not having fun? Doesn't that look fun? But it wasn't all fun and games. And I remember craving, wanting a normal life. I just wanted to live in a house. The word house meant so much to me. It plagued me at night. I couldn't sleep at night. I just dreamed about this house. Because to me, living in America, if you lived in a house, that meant that you had made it. If you lived in a house, preferably one with stairs, that meant that you were normal. And I clearly was not normal. And as the years went by, I started to accept the fact that I was not normal, which led to other not normal thoughts, like the fact that I could write books at the age of 12, or go to college at the age of 13. All of that led to even more not normal notions, like the fact that I can do anything, but that more importantly, I should do what I want. These were not normal thoughts for someone who grew up the way I did. Now, the fact that I went to college at the age of 13, I started to realize is something I will never escape. In a way, it kind of defines me. I've tried very hard not to let it define me. I've tried very hard in my career to come up with something, anything, any kind of accomplishments to divert people's attention away from that fact, but invariably, it pops up. So I'll talk about it tonight. Going to college early was an incredible experience. It was fascinating for me personally. And if you have kids and you're thinking about sending your kids down that same path, going to school early, I have 3 words for you. Don't do it. I have 3 stories to tell about going to college early. The first one is about lying a lot. I lied a lot. I lied about my age throughout all of my college years and most of my law school years. By the time that I graduated, at the end of my higher education, I was so good at lying about myself that I think I could have fit right in any mental institute, or at the very least, Hollywood. I have a picture for you. This was me around 15 or 16 at Berkeley. You can see that I could have passed as a 22-year-old, I guess. The second story that I have to say is that the thing about going to college early is that you get out early. I didn't realize this. I really didn't finishing up Berkeley going, okay, what do I do now? What do I do with myself? I was clearly not ready to go into the workforce. So I did the most natural thing that someone does when they have no clue what to do, which is to sign up for more school. I was a professional student, absolutely. It's one thing to go to college early. It is a whole different ball game to go to law school early. I was faced with a major, major dilemma, which was that all my section events at Harvard Law took place in bars. I was 18, 19, clearly underage at the time. So what do? Do I break the law, get a fake ID, so that I can go into this bar to attend a law school event? Or do I sit at home lonely and sad? For the record, I never ever used a fake ID to get into any bar. I just like to put that out there, okay? It was not easy. It was an ordeal disguising my age. I had to make up all sorts of excuses. You know, my grandma died. Oh, but didn't your grandma die last week? Oh, my other grandma. If you ask anyone who graduated from Harvard Law School, class of 2005, they'll tell you that Kelly Yang had 30 grandmothers and they all died. In the end, I couldn't even go to my own graduation party because I was only 20 at the time, and the legal drinking age in the States, unfortunately, is 21. Why did I lie? Why didn't I just tell people how old I was? Well, because I wanted to be normal, just like I wanted to live in a house. I wanted to be normal. I wanted to fit in. I wanted so desperately to just blend in with my peers. Yet, everything that I really wanted, stuff that I aspired for, that I had passion for, they weren't normal. So while I always went for what I really wanted, I sometimes had to live with the unpleasant consequences of getting them. The third story that I have for you tonight is that whatever you do it for the right reason. Now you've heard this all before, but you'd be amazed how many smart people do not follow this. I remember at some point in law school being sick and tired of the law, just bored. How many lawyers do we have today in this room? Raise your hands. Okay, I don't know how you guys do it. I was so bored of the law. I couldn't do it. I couldn't read one more case. I couldn't care less what happened in the case. I just couldn't do it. But most of my other classmates actually felt the same too. They were also bored. Yet they stuck with it. They stuck with it because society told us that if you got into Harvard Law School, then by God, you ought to come out a lawyer. That if you were lucky enough to be recruited by the top law firms in the country and offered six-figure starting salaries, then by God, you ought to take it. And this sort of reasoning, it worked for most of my classmates. Almost every single one of them graduated and went on to become corporate lawyers. But it didn't work for me. I didn't buy it. You see, I never went to college early because my parents told me to. I never wrote books because my parents told me to. The fact of the matter is, no one ever told me to do anything except answer phones in a hotel. I did all those things because it was what I really wanted to do. The problem with kids these days, and especially here in Hong Kong, is that we tell them what to do. We spoon feed them. We hold their hands. We tell them, you can be anything, when really they should be the ones telling us, I can be anything. So there I am in law school, finishing up my degree. I did graduate, by the way. But not knowing what I was going to do, I had no idea, once again, perfectly not intending on using the education that I was now tens of thousands of dollars in debt for. So I started thinking, what is it that I really love to do? Well, the answer for me was always writing. Writing was the thing that I did when I was most happy. Writing was the thing that I did when I was most sad. Writing was the thing that took me to Harvard Law out of this motel in the first place. So I thought that if there was any way that I could combine my love, my passion for writing, with my love for liberal arts education in the States, namely critical reasoning, creativity, thinking outside the box, that sort of thing, in a way that could transform education back home in Asia, that I would be happy. And that is how the Kelly Yang Project, or KYP, started. Now, in hindsight, the decision to go from law to education to teaching was a very natural one. After all, teaching is exciting. Being in front of people, especially kids, is exciting. And for those of you who unfortunately, and I mean unfortunately, know what form checks are, or Reg S or 144A documents are, law was not. But everyone at the time thought I was crazy. My professors, my family, my parents, my mother right there especially, my friends, they thought I was crazy. Who gives up law to go and be a tutor? Not even a proper teacher at a proper international school like CIS, but a tutor, right? I was clearly crazy. But to me, it was normal. Now, in my 5 years working in education, I've learned a lot. Not just about children and what makes them click, but also about Hong Kong and our society. Because in order to understand kids, you have to first understand our city and where we're coming from. I've learned that Hong Kong is a place which puts a lot of emphasis on education, a lot of emphasis. And as a result, most of our kids benefit. Most of the students here benefit from this. But I've also learned that Hong Kong is a place that doesn't have a lot of diversity. And even the diversity that does exist sometimes is not apparent or available to all of us. And as a result, our kids suffer. So what I try to do in my job is figure out what can I do about that. Most of the parents in Hong Kong want their kids to go to the Ivy Leagues, right? Yes? Yes, I see a lot of nods. But the thing about the parents is that they don't really understand why. Most parents in Hong Kong don't know what an Ivy League degree even is or means, what a liberal arts education is, much less whether it really is the right path for their child. They don't know, they don't care, they just want to get in. Now what I try to do in my job is I try to make up for some of this cultural, educational, informational, whatever you want to call it, gap. Because there really is a gap. I try to give my students what I think they're missing, namely a thirst for literature, an interest in current events, an appreciation for originality and innovation, and an obsession for good writing and public speaking. I want to lend myself out to my students, not just as an example of, yes, you can go to Harvard, but also as an example of, yes, you can do your own thing. You know, be not normal, be weird, break conventions, take the road less traveled on, because to succeed in today's world, you have to be ready to be different. The amazing thing was that the students really listened, and this is where I think tutoring is very interesting. You see, to me, to my kids, I'm a bit of an enigma. I'm an adult, but I'm not their parents. I impart knowledge, yet I'm not their teacher. They don't have to kiss up to me because I don't give them a grade. So what happens is that they listen to me sometimes with more intensity and speak to me with more honesty than others. Early on in my career, I realized that along with this special power came a very special responsibility. I had to really use my 1.5 hours a week with them, not just to teach them writing, but to also inspire them. And I also realized that I had an extra special responsibility, especially towards my female students of mine in the room. I had to motivate them because I know that as a girl, it's hard to grow up. It's just so easy to sit back and try to be the cool girl or the pretty girl. And especially girls in Hong Kong because they lack strong role models. So as a result, they have a much tougher time getting inspired. But let's not just hear it from me, let's hear it from some of my students.
Girls are just naturally quieter and like being quiet.
Okay, Deanna?
Girls are just much better at school and stuff.
Like, I think women in Hong Kong in general are pretty intimidating. Like, my teachers, they're pretty intimidating. It's good for a woman to go out, make her own income, get a job herself instead of freeloading off other people.
I think it's important for a girl to be pretty because people just take first impression on their looks.
What do you want to be when you grow up and why? Do you want to be like your mom?
Not really.
Why not?
Because, just I think something better. Because my mom doesn't do anything except take care. I want to do a job, and also take care.
I hear from many of my friends who say like, oh, my mother wants me to marry a Korean guy, wants me to marry a hot Japanese guy, you know? But I think that should change. I mean, the parents should be saying, do you know what, I want you to pursue your dreams and do anything you want, just be the best at what you can, rather than I want you to marry a rich guy.
Well, I think today girls are a lot more independent, whereas like before, they just have to rely on like the men to do everything. I don't have any female role models.
Why not?
I don't think there's that many big things. I mean, sure, like women have done a lot of stuff, like charitable stuff, but like there's not like one big person who's really done something like massive.
I can't really think of any female role models.
So who's your female role model?
I don't have one. I don't really have any specific female role models. I don't really have any female role models. I only have male ones.
Okay, now what I think is interesting from that video is, as you can see, most of the girls, almost all the girls we talked to said they have no female role models. Are you guys shocked? I was shocked, yeah. I mean, why is that? Not even one? Not even your mom? If our girls don't have female role models, then what does that say to you about Hong Kong and our society? What does that say? It says that we have a problem. Are our girls afraid to be like their moms because their moms, quote, just stay at home? Are they afraid to be like their power broker moms because as girls, as daughters, they experience the negative side of that coin? Now I think that all of us, especially everyone here in this room today, we have a responsibility to try to change this. I don't think it's as hard as it sounds. Kids are amazing because they pick up all their cues from us. You know, what we say, what we don't say, what we think is cool and not cool, who we hang out with, what we like to do for fun, the topics we bring up at our dinner table, who we have at our dinner table, all of that shapes lives. So to really empower girls of the next generation, we have to engage them, really talk to them. Not just about what makes us great, but also about the mistakes that we've made, what makes us vulnerable, because that's what they really want to know. We have to give them guidance, but not just tell them what to do. Ask them what they want to do and be prepared, willing, ready to support their answer, no matter how weird and unconventional that answer may be. Because the ideas that are going to change our world are always going to start off not normal. Thank you very much.